Hello, my dear friends. How are you doing? Hope you are having an amazing day and not having to deal with drama. Ready for new stories I have for you today? Let's go to the first one. And don't forget to listen to the end of the story, guys, to hear my insights. Enjoy the stories, and don't forget to like and subscribe. And of course, don't forget to leave a comment. I, 60 female, truly believed I had found love again. After losing my first husband 20 years ago to a heart attack, I never thought I'd ever feel that kind of warmth or joy again. My life became about raising my son, Liam, 35 male, and prioritizing stability in his life. I didn't date much. A few short-lived relationships here and there, but nothing serious. I was always the one to give up early, telling myself it was too late for me, or that no one could ever compare to my late husband. But then came Thomas, 61 male. Thomas was charming, attentive, respectful. We met at a charity fundraiser for a local animal shelter, and it was love at first sight. He was a man who listened, who remembered small details, who brought me my favorite flowers without prompting. We started dating slowly. My friends, even Liam, said I glowed when I talked about him. And I felt it. For the first time in decades, I felt wanted. We dated for 2 years before he proposed on my birthday in front of my family. It was perfect. Liam is married to Ava, 32 female. They've been together for 8 years, married for 5. I won't lie, our relationship has always been a little strained. Ava is polite but cold. She's one of those people who always seems to be acting, like she's performing affection and charm for social points. She just always felt so fake and unnatural to me. But she was Liam's choice, and I respected that. We kept our interactions pleasant and surface level. I never got in her way, never interfered, never caused drama. Our wedding day was supposed to be small, elegant, and intimate, about 50 people. My dress was ivory with lace sleeves, nothing extravagant, but it made me feel beautiful. The venue was a small church followed by a garden reception. I spent months obsessing over every detail, not out of vanity, but because it was the first time in so long that I had something truly joyful to look forward to. Something just for me. And then, I was standing in the small bridal room of the church about 30 minutes before the ceremony. I had stepped out to use the private restroom next door. As I was about to open the door, I heard someone speaking on the phone just outside. The voice was unmistakable. It was Ava. I wasn't trying to eavesdrop, but when I heard my name, I froze. And what she said shattered me. She laughed, actually laughed, and said something like, "I swear to God, if this old bat actually marries him, I'll die. It's already been a year, and the man's still obsessed with me. Last night he said he was going to miss sneaking around once he's married, and that I drive him wild. I'm sure he won't be able to resist after marriage as well." There was more, much more. But that's the line that keeps echoing in my head. I felt the world collapse under my feet. My ears were ringing. My stomach was in knots. I didn't know whether to scream, cry, vomit, or run. She had no idea I was just inside. I quietly locked the door, sat down on the closed toilet lid, and tried to breathe. I felt like a fool, a pathetic, stupid woman who was about to marry a man who had been sleeping with her son's wife. There was no time to process, to investigate, to confront. I had 25 minutes before I was supposed to walk down the aisle. So, I did what any emotionally paralyzed, humiliated, heartbroken woman might do. I went ahead with the ceremony. I let them dress me, touch up my makeup, fluff my veil. I walked down that aisle with everyone staring and smiling. I stood there in front of the pastor, holding Thomas's hands, trembling but silent. My voice wouldn't work. My throat was dry. His eyes locked onto mine, and for a second, I wondered if he knew I knew. Then came the moment. The pastor asked me the question, "Do you take this man as your husband?" I paused. I could feel the air shift. Everyone was waiting, and I said, loud enough for everyone to hear, "No, I don't. Because this man has been cheating on me, with my son's wife." The silence was instant and deep, like everyone collectively forgot how to breathe. Thomas's mouth opened, but no words came out. Ava turned a ghostly white. Liam jumped up from the front pew, sputtering something like, "Mom, what are you doing?" But I kept going. I said I wasn't going to marry someone who betrayed me in the worst way possible. I looked directly at Ava and said, "Shame on you. You call yourself a wife, and you slept with the man your daughter calls grandpa." Then I walked out. I didn't wait for explanations. I didn't need them. I didn't care what excuses they would concoct. I drove to a friend's house, still in my wedding dress. We sat in silence for a while before she poured me a glass of wine, and I finally let the sobs out. I felt broken, embarrassed, destroyed. But now comes the part I didn't expect. A week later, Liam shows up at my door. He doesn't look angry at first, just drained. I invite him in, thinking he might want to talk instead. He explodes. He says I humiliated and embarrassed him and his wife in front of everyone. That I ruined a beautiful day. That I should have confronted my fiance in private, not in front of friends and extended family. That it was my day, but I made it a circus. He said he had already forgiven Ava for her mistake because it only happened a few times and was over now. I was shocked. Can you imagine that? He told me he's been in therapy with her, trying to rebuild trust, and that she swore it meant nothing and was just a toxic mistake. But he chose to forgive her for the sake of their daughter. And I am the villain because I made it public. I didn't play nice. I didn't bury my heartbreak for the sake of appearances. I exposed it all, loudly, publicly, because I was done being the gracious mother, the self-sacrificing woman, the one who puts everyone else's comfort above her own agony. He called me selfish. He told me I had no right to say what I did in front of others because it wasn't my secret to reveal. I couldn't believe my ears. I haven't heard from him since. It's been 3 weeks. I tried to call once. He didn't answer. I sent a message on his birthday last weekend. No response. My granddaughter turned 4 last month. I wasn't invited to her party. I feel like I've lost everything. My future, my son, my granddaughter, my entire sense of self has been flipped upside down. I'm grieving a man who never existed, a relationship that was a lie, a son who chose silence over truth, and a family that's now shattered. My friends say I did the right thing, that I was brave, that I deserved better. But there's a part of me that wonders, should I have waited? Should I have confronted them privately? Should I have swallowed the pain until the guests went home? Did I let my emotions burn down something that maybe could have been managed differently? So, Reddit. Am I the a-hole for refusing to marry my fiancé at the altar and exposing him for cheating on me with my son's wife in front of everyone? 1,000 times, not the a-hole. OP was seconds away from legally binding herself to a man who was betraying her in the most disgusting way possible, with her daughter-in-law. And OP's son has the nerve to be mad at her for embarrassing him and his wife. Number. He should be embarrassed for choosing to stay with a woman who slept with his mother's fiancé. He should be embarrassed for blaming OP instead of holding the cheaters accountable. OP didn't burn anything down. They did. OP just turned the lights on. Good for OP for walking out with your head high. And now let's hear community's opinion. Your son saying you made it a circus is the ultimate gaslight. The real circus was already happening behind your back, and they were the clowns. You were dignified, even in devastation. You stood in your truth when most people would have crumbled. No, you shouldn't have waited. You would have lived with that lie haunting you if you had gone through with it. You gave Ava and Thomas what they deserved: exposure. I'm so sorry you're grieving all this, but please don't question your courage. You did what decades of self-sacrifice had trained you not to do. You chose yourself. I'm so sorry, truly. What you went through is the kind of heartbreak that destroys foundations. You lost not just a partner, but the illusion of family stability. And while I can understand your son wanting to keep his marriage together for the sake of his child, blaming you for reacting to such a visceral betrayal is cruel and deeply unfair. Don't internalize his anger. His ego was bruised, his judgment questioned, and instead of holding his wife accountable, he redirected all that pain onto the easiest scapegoat, his mother. That says more about him than about you. Honestly, you did what most people wish they had the courage to do. Stand up for yourself at the most humiliating moment of your life. You could have pretended, put on a smile, and endured a fake ceremony for the sake of appearances. But why should you swallow that agony to preserve the dignity of the very people who betrayed you? Ava is a snake, and your son has chosen to build a life with a woman who crawled into your bed, figuratively and literally. And Thomas, he deserves to grow old alone, I hope one day your son realizes what he lost when he let silence speak louder than truth. I, female 25, got married 2 months ago, July, to my boyfriend, male 26, now husband, of 12 years. My brother-in-law, husband's brother, and his wife, sister-in-law, got married 3 months before us. Originally, our weddings would have been further apart, but virus hit, and my brother-in-law and sister-in-law had to postpone their wedding, so it was close to ours. We had a beautiful ceremony in a little church in the town our families live in. After the ceremony, we went outside and our guests congratulated us. I was so excited that I honestly couldn't tell who wore what, but I saw that some of our friends seemed mad. We wanted a big picture of us together with our guests, and while the photographer coordinated who would stand where, my sister-in-law tried to stand next to me. That was when I saw she was wearing a white dress. I was shocked, but didn't know what to say, so I just looked the other way. But my maid of honor smiled at her and said quite loudly, "Oh, what a nice white dress." My sister-in-law kind of gasped and went, "That's tan." I just said nothing. We wanted pictures with our close family, and as it was brother-in-law and sister-in-law's turn, she again went to stand next to me. But my brother-in-law told her to stand next to my husband and he would stay next to me. I didn't even look at her. Later we arrived at our venue, and I could hear our friends talk about the white dress and how disrespectful my sister-in-law was. But she couldn't have heard it because they took the wrong road and weren't there yet. 2 of our friends even talked about tripping and getting red wine on her dress, and I still just said nothing. No one did anything to my sister-in-law or said anything else to her, and they left shortly after dinner because they still had a long way to drive home. 2 days later, we visited my in-laws, and my mother-in-law took me aside to tell me the dress my sister-in-law was wearing was tan, not white, and my sister-in-law is extremely hurt about what my maid of honor said and felt shamed and excluded. My mother-in-law asked me if I really thought the dress was white, and I said yes. Furthermore, I told her I think it was a totally inappropriate dress because I know that my sister-in-law's wedding dress was the exact same color, and she would have hated having someone at her own wedding wearing something similar, even if it was off-white. Nearly every dress right now is off-white, and she must have known that our guests would be talking about her, and not positively, if she showed up like this. My mother-in-law said I can't really believe that my sister-in-law would do something like this on purpose, and insinuated that I am a total a-hole for this, and for not stopping our friends from thinking badly of my sister-in-law. I'm still getting comments about this, so am I the a-hole? Proof is in the pictures. If it was a very light tan, it is going to look white in the outside light. Show those to mother-in-law and see what she says. Not the a-hole because you didn't do anything on the day of, and I won't say a-hole for your maid of honor's comments. So, if I'm reading this correctly, literally the only thing you actually did was say yes when your mother-in-law asked you point blank after the wedding if you thought sister-in-law's dress was white, and you said that you thought sister-in-law's choice of dress was inappropriate. At the wedding, your maid of honor made one comment, but other than that, no one said a word to your sister-in-law about her dress. You said nothing at the wedding. You said nothing at the reception. You just minded your own business. You didn't pitch a bridezilla hissy. You didn't throw her out. You thought about doing stuff or letting someone else do stuff, but you actually did nothing. So I'm really confused as to what you did that you owe anyone an apology for. Not the a-hole. Not the a-hole. It's sister-in-law's own fault if other guests at the wedding thought badly of her for what she did. You didn't react one way or the other. It's not up to you to manage how people, reasonably, feel about her behavior. And mother-in-law's putting it on you is weird. Edit. The fact that she kept trying to stand next to you is also a little sus, and suggests it was intentional. I have 2 sons and a young daughter. Son 1 got married a few years ago. Daughter-in-law 1 did not have a lot of family, and her mother passed away when she was younger. So I was very involved in planning and contributed to the wedding heavily. She also wore my dress. Son 2 is now getting married. It's been a much more stressful, argumentative process. Daughter-in-law 2 has very specific things she wants, and even though I'm contributing just as much financially as we did for son number 1 and daughter-in-law 1, just out of fairness, she and her mom want to run the show completely and have excluded me from most of the planning. I've tried to take a step back and just accept that this is what it is. I'm not interested in withdrawing funding, but it's hard sometimes, and there have still been plenty of arguments. The latest and biggest is over the dress. My dress's design makes it somewhat unforgiving without actual alterations. It's not the kind of dress with a lot of give. Daughter-in-law 1 had similar proportions to me. We did end up safety pinning one spot day of, but did no real alterations. Daughter-in-law 2 is substantially bigger, which means adding panels or more substantial modifications. For the record, she's probably on the edge of being overweight, but really she's not that big. She just has curves, while daughter-in-law 1 and I do not. She's also several inches taller. So I don't think of it as a weight issue as much as a body type issue. I could not gain weight to fit daughter-in-law 2's measurements and vice versa. The dress is very delicate, and I'm uncomfortable with it being modified. I want it saved for my youngest daughter, who again has a similar body type to me and daughter-in-law 1, and potentially daughter-in-law 1 and son number 1's daughter, and any other grandchildren. My sister's teenage daughter, my niece, had even expressed an interest in it. I told my son I was not willing to allow the dress to be altered. He accused me of favoritism, not for the first time during this process. I offered my veil on its own, but he turned it down. Honestly, I might have said, I'll pay for a different dress, but I'm already paying half the cost of this wedding while having much less input than daughter-in-law 2's family, so the idea of paying even more makes me cringe. And as I said, it's been a rancorous planning process, and I don't think daughter-in-law 2 and her family even like me much at this point. I think for my son it's more about the cost savings of the dress versus the sentimental value. I don't know if daughter-in-law feels the same. The original dress was quite expensive, and as I said, is quite pretty. So maybe it's about having her heart set on my dress specifically, regardless of her and her mother's personal feelings towards me. Not the a-hole. Get your son a suit made for little boys. Tell him to put it on. When he says it's too small, tell him now he understands the problem with your dress. Not the a-hole. Your dress, your decision. End of story. That's literally all the reason you need. No is a complete sentence. If he keeps pestering you, just tell him asked and answered, ad nauseum, and maybe lock your dress up or leave it with someone you trust in the meantime to ensure he doesn't steal it. You might think he wouldn't do this, but given his current sense of entitlement, play it safe just in case. Let him frustrate himself instead of you being frustrated. That said, your son is acting like an ingrate. Maybe you should pull back on supporting him further, as he seems to see you as a bank. Not the a-hole. The dress doesn't fit daughter-in-law 2 without major alterations, so not loaning it to her is not personal, it's pragmatic. And because you're generously contributing half of the wedding expenses already, you're essentially paying for her dress anyway. All you can really do is remain kindly firm in your refusal and let the chips fall where they may. My ex-maid of honor and I had been friends for a decade prior to asking her to be my maid of honor a year ago. We had always had a great relationship. We have multiple same interests, and we would go to flea markets, antique shopping. We would go on couples dates to the movies and dinner, and we enjoyed gardening and plants. I would like to preface that our styles have never been the same. To our clothing, hairstyles, and even tattoo styles. A year ago, I asked my maid of honor and bridesmaids to be in my wedding. I had made cute little boxes with a robe for getting ready the day of, a cute spa candle, customized cup with their names on it, jewelry for the wedding, and a color swatch for the dress. I let everyone pick their own dress. It just needed to be wedding appropriate, and no excessive cleavage. Then we would make everything look cohesive with hair, makeup, and accessories. I thought this would be the best and easiest way to do it. I was definitely wrong. We had decided on nude classic shoes. They were still able to choose their own shoes, as long as it was a nude classic shoe. The hair and makeup we chose are classic and elegant. The jewelry had already been purchased and given to them. About 3 months ago, everything started to go downhill. First, it was the shoes. She came over one day to help me with wedding stuff. When she arrived, she showed me her shoes for the wedding. They were gladiator-style heels. Then she proceeded to tell me that the shoes I had bought for the wedding, the style I had chosen, was a grandma style. Then it was the hair. I had posted in the group chat a couple of nice elegant hairstyle ideas. She proceeded to freak out about it and went off on me and the other bridesmaids that she wouldn't be doing any of that elegant crap. Then it was the earrings. The earrings and jewelry that everyone received in their box when they accepted being in the wedding a year ago. She was going to buy a different pair of earrings because she didn't like the style of the earrings. Last Wednesday, I was to the point of not caring anymore. I was just tired of arguing about everything. Then Thursday, my bridesmaids informed me of several awful things she was saying about my fiance and I. Friday, I kicked her out of the wedding. I had one of my bridesmaids with me when I did it, in case it went badly. She went absolutely crazy and blamed me for being a bridezilla and that I'm an a-hole for kicking her out of the wedding. Am I the a-hole? Not the a-hole. Sounds like she wanted you to kick her out so she didn't have to look bad. I think your requirements sound reasonable. You gave them the jewelry, which she didn't seem to have problems with at the time. And now she's gone full cranky pants on you and insulted you and your fiancé. Good riddance. Not the a-hole. She knows your style, and you've been clear about your vision for the wedding from the start. If she was not willing to adapt to your style for one day, then she should have declined your invite to be in the wedding party. Not the a-hole. If all you've said is true, that's a pretty decent requirement for a bridesmaid. You let them choose their own dress and shoes, as long as they fit the style. You provided jewelry and had hair and makeup already planned. That's pretty open as far as bridesmaids' requirements go. If it's not her style, that doesn't matter. It's your wedding and she agreed to be in it, so she should have to deal with it. Making rude comments about you and your fiancé is just the topping on the crab cake, and it's good you got rid of her. I, female 48, have a daughter, female 18, who wants to go to art school. Her dream school is 4 hours from where we live in the capital of our state. Rent prices are out of this world expensive there, and we thought for a long time that she wouldn't be able to go to this school, until my sister offered her to stay at their house in the city rent-free. She has accepted the offer and will be attending school at the end of May. Me and my husband are very excited for her. However, before this offer came, she had a backup plan involving her boyfriend, male 22. Some background information. She met this guy through the Target she works at. At 21 years old, he does not have a driver's license. Me and my husband had to help him learn how to drive and get his learner's permit. A high school diploma, a GED, or even sufficient savings built up. No one in our family has ever been fond of him. He is crass, rude, immature, and unmotivated. Every time he is over at our house, he is all over my daughter. He does not understand consequences. The only thing he had going for him was that he had a job. Well, not anymore. He was fired from Target. Her original plan was to move with him to the city of the school she wanted to attend, until she realized how impossible that would be with rent prices being what they are. That was a nasty wake-up call for her. So her backup plan was to move with him to the city 2 hours from ours, with another art school she could attend. This way, her boyfriend could stay with her and work full-time to provide for both while she was in school full-time. When we discussed this plan, I told her I would not help her pay for her car insurance or her phone bill if she chose to go to her second-choice school just so he could live with her. She was very upset with me and brought up how I'm paying for these things for her older brother. I responded that her brother is in school full-time pursuing his bachelor's degree without living with a partner we would have to support. She has now confided in this brother, and he has informed me that she is accusing me of financially manipulating her because I do not want to help support her boyfriend while she went to school. Let me reiterate, she was going to settle for another school so her boyfriend could live with her, instead of going to her dream school. I would also like to mention that the program she is looking at is only 6 months long. She will be separated from her boyfriend for 6 months this way. So I guess I'm wondering, am I the a-hole by financially manipulating her? Or am I just setting a boundary that I would not help her make a huge mistake and settle for less than what she wants? If anyone has any questions or needs information, I'd be happy to provide answers. Edit clarifications. First, she has accepted my sister's offer and will be attending her dream school. This is just an issue that she has decided to revisit, for a reason I can't fully understand at the time. Second, someone asked about his parents. He still lives with them, and they are partly responsible for how he's turned out and why he is so far behind in life. They are very hard on him and treat him pretty poorly. The only world in which you are an a-hole is in that of an 18-year-old who is in love for the first time, has no concept of what it means to support themselves, and has an unrealistic view of what romantic love and devotion is. She will gain experience and look back and see you are not out to ruin her happiness, but she still has growing to do. Not the a-hole. Not the a-hole. Why would your daughter think you're just going to pay for some other grown man? You don't really have to give her anything. She needs to come down to reality. Not the a-hole. Set the boundaries and do not waver. Your daughter is making the most monumental mistake by attaching herself to this young man. By sending her money or paying her bills, you will only be allowing him to further take advantage of her. I guarantee you that she will end up quitting shortly after she starts school and will not even tell you because she won't want you to know that she had to get a job and support him. I'm speaking from experience here. Do not tell her to leave him or try to convince her in any way to go to the other school. You must let her make her own choice. The only thing you can do is exactly what you are doing. Set the boundaries of what you will and won't do and stick to them. My wife and I have a 3-month-old. He's a handful, but compared to some of my friends and cousins' kids, he seems easier than most. Knock on wood. Still, he's a baby, so it's safe to say I haven't gotten 8 hours of uninterrupted sleep in approximately 3 months. This weekend I was at my parents' house, as were my sister and her husband, and my brother and his wife, I'll call Karen. Karen is very outspoken about being child-free. She will frequently bring up, without being asked, how she never wants kids, thinks they're annoying and too expensive, etc. I truly don't care whatsoever. That is her view, and would never advise anyone who doesn't want kids to have them. Anyway, we were all talking about movies being out in theaters, when my wife made a comment about how we hadn't been to a movie in 3 months, and won't be for a while most likely. Said something about how it's hard to get out for a date night, and if we do, there's just other things we'd choose. Karen then said without being asked, "Don't expect us to be babysitting for your date nights. I do not want to watch a baby." I responded, "Don't worry, I would never have you watch my child." My sister and husband laughed. My parents smirked but didn't say anything. Karen seemed embarrassed, didn't say much for a while, and then left about a half an hour later without my brother. Yesterday my brother texted me that my remark was rude, and I should have just kept it to myself, and she now thinks my whole family hates her. Was I really out of line? Not the a-hole. She had no reason to make her declaration, but since she did, you answered in a way that addressed her concerns and assured her that you understood her position. Not the a-hole. People need to understand that they get back the same energy they put out. There was nothing rude about your reply. She made a factual statement, and you replied truthfully. If she feels your answer was out of line, then she needs to reflect on what she said first before blaming anyone. As to whether your family hates her, that's not really a question for you. He can ask them individually. Not the a-hole. And why is she offended? She has made it abundantly clear she doesn't want to be around children. So why would she expect you to ask someone so hostile to kids to look after yours? She is the rude one. Everyone gets she doesn't want kids and respects that.